So I'm Michael Williamson from Independent Loss Adjusters, and we're here today doing a podcast with Claire. I'll let Claire introduce herself.
So my name's Claire Massey. I'm a policyholder with Policy Expert, and I've also got a consumer group that I've set up called Claim Guardians.
The idea of today is that Claire's been through a very difficult insurance claim with her insurance policy. We weren't actually involved in Claire's claim, but we were just giving some general advice and assistance as we had a mutual friend in a nutshell. Claire actually took her claim to the Financial Ombudsman and subsequently won. She's also been featured on a couple of TV programmes in relation to the claim. So we thought we'd get her in today, let her have a chat with us. She's got some questions from the Claims Guardian group, people in similar situations who are now reaching out to Claire. So we've asked her to come along with a list of questions, see if we can help her. And if we can't get the answers today, we certainly come back and give the answers at a later stage. So I'll let you roll away.
Okay, so thank you for this opportunity. In the Claim Guardians group, there's a lot of people in there that are going through similar difficult insurance claims. I will say that not all insurers are the same, but we do see that there's a pattern with a few insurers where there are problems. Things like delay tactics, slow take-up of dealing with claims from day one, issues with any cleaning that needs to be done, for example, if there's fire damage or smoke damage, or escape of water, and making sure that the standards of those are up to industry standards. How can policyholders make sure that their homes are being properly assessed for the damage, because we do see that there's a lot of consumers that they don't even have the most serious health and safety issues even considered, like mold.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of this comes back to the purchasing of the insurance. We talked about this earlier, but the experiences often are dependent on how much you paid for your premium. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So, there are some serious high net worth insurers who will cost more than the most consumers can afford, and you won't get most of these issues. The issues are coming from the smaller, well, they're not actually smaller, but the companies that charge a lower premium, and they do that by keeping the costs down at claim stage. The first thing you should know is every single insurance policy allows for a surveyor when it's justified. Okay, so it's written into all policies. There is one particular policy that we know about, and we've talked about previously, the policy that you was insured with, where it says that they can have their own surveyor, and I entirely disagree with that situation, because I believe it's a matter of indemnity. But most insurance policies say that they will indemnify you your fees for your surveyor if one is justified. You got to ask yourself, when is it justified? And to be honest, some people say value, some people say complexity. I actually think it's more complex, because you can have a low value complex claim and you can have a high value non-complex claim. If I have a £50,000 kitchen, that's still a kitchen, it's just £50,000. Whereas I could have a subsidence claim, which is £5,000. So but what you've got to understand is when the insurance company say to you, or their adjuster has said that they've got a surveyor, you need to understand at that point that you are paying for that surveyor for your indemnity. And you need to try that stage and say, thank you for confirming a surveyor is required. I would like to engage my own. Now, why is that important? It's important because you're not the consumer. Okay, so let's just say that 6 months down the line, you fall out with a surveyor. He says something you don't agree with, and you say, I want to see that report. You're not going to get it. And even if you do a GDPR request, you're still not going to get it, which I think personally is something which is fundamentally wrong with the industry. Because it's your indemnity that's paying for it. And the word indemnity means financial loss. Okay. And so it's your financial loss in fees that you are claiming for, not for them to use their surveyor. Now, they may say they want to have their own surveyor on there as well, which is fair enough, to speak to your surveyor, to come to agreements. That's absolutely fine. You've got to understand that at that very early stage, when the insurance company say we're appointing our surveyor, what you should be saying at that stage is, well, can't I have my own? Even if you're going to allow them to appoint their surveyor, what we often will say is only on the condition I'm the consumer or a joint consumer. listed as a consumer, which means that you will have automatic access to the records under the GDPR.
Yeah.
Just understand it's your right. It's your right to choose who the surveyor is in most policies. As I say, there are a few caveats, but I think need to be challenged at kind of at law stage. But at the moment they haven't. But most decent insurers, it says that they would indemnify you the fees of your surveyor. So when you need a surveyor, get one. Sometimes you won't have a surveyor. Sometimes it will be their supplier,
Right.
a drying company. You're going to struggle to get the rates, the individual broken down rates. So let's say you get a schedule of work. What they don't do is they don't give you the list price at the end, which again I think is very poor.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't realise is the computer system will have 3 or 4 different options for the insurance company, one for their contractor, one for what they would call a local contractor, one for what they would call a cash settlement. And the word cash is very dangerous, but we'll talk about that later. You've got to ask for the schedule. Okay, so ask for the schedule. Now, you're going to struggle to understand the schedule because it's going to be on a computer system, often Xactimate or Symbility or similar system that insurance industries use. So you need ideally to get a professional, someone like ourselves who can read that schedule and understand what's missing.
Yeah.
I'll give you a very simple example. On an Xactimate schedule, you have a worktop. Okay, and it will say replace a worktop 3 meters square, 3 meters length, and that's in the schedule. You will think your contractor will look at that and think, "Oh, I've got to replace the worktop," and that's within the price. Doesn't realise that actually there's 2 or 3 more lines that should come with that. For example, the sealant should be put on there. If there's any cutouts, the apertures for the sink, that should be put on there. The mighty joint should be put on there. So all of a sudden, that 1 line turns into 4 lines.
Yeah.
It's not the same for all systems, but I'm just talking about one particular system. But they don't often put the other 3 items in. So you're getting £300 for a worktop to be fitted with the apertures. It's not.
Yeah, it doesn't cover the cost of the work.
But then I will tell you that there's 3, 4 items that are missing. You need to bring someone who understands it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's not many people. Obviously, that's what we do. We represent people, but there's a fee associated with it, which obviously is another bugbear of ours. The customers have to pay the fee, but it is the way it is at the moment.
Yeah. And I think that customers that don't realise that there are representatives out there that can help them and deal with these claims on their own, they do it to the best of their ability. And from what I've seen through chats with people in the group is that the insurer isn't going to offer that kind of information to the customer, that they've missed stuff out.
Absolutely no chance. And that's what's so annoying, because all of I'm not inventing new information. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I am taking past claims, past case law, past FOS cases, and that's how we advise people. That's what we use. So the information's there. It's always there. It's just that no one's going to hand it to you.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to change. I'm trying to change that and try and make people understand that there are ways that you can argue things, and just because it comes on an insurance company headed paper and the letter looks like it's professional doesn't mean nothing. Half of these letters are pre-printed, etc. You don't take their word as the final word, and don't trust it as because people think they're regulated. So they're going to look after me. Yeah. I'm afraid that's not the case. Yeah. It's not the case. If it was, we'd never win a case.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also as well that what I'm seeing as a pattern is that the most serious issues within a property after a catastrophic event. So because the claims are taking so long to process, there's residual damage that's happening in the home. For example, if you use a escape of water example, it happens, they don't send drying teams in quick enough, and then mold starts to appear, and it's left, and it gets worse and it gets worse. And then when the insurance companies are putting forward their scope of works, they're not addressing the most critical, serious element of there's a mold problem now, and they just brush over it, and they're not dealing with it, and people are reinstating their homes without knowing the dangers that are lying beneath the surface, and that's a real massive concern to me.
Yeah, it's probably our biggest claims numbers that we deal with are people who suffered water leaks and are not satisfied that the insurance company are drying them properly correctly. I mean, first and foremost, you should be getting the certificate of dryness or drying certificate. So whether it be the insurance companies have, many companies that they use, and they're all different. Some are good, some are bad. We have our own company as well, and we have the same issues. Some you have good and bad days, but ultimately, what you're looking for is a certificate of dryness to confirm that property is returned to its pre-loss condition. Now, if you don't have that, then ultimately, even when it comes to sell your house, if I came to buy your house and I knew you had an escape of water claim, I want to see your certificate of dryness. I want to know that it's returned to its pre-loss condition, the mold issues have gone away, and best of all, if they're not, I've got someone to go and blame. That's what this is all about. This is all about liabilities.
And it falls to the homeowner.
Yeah.
It's our fault.
Yeah,
they don't fix
exactly. Well, you go to your insurance company and report a mould claim 3 years down the line, and what you end up with is them saying to you that it's a gradual operating cause, which isn't covered under the insurance policy, because obviously mould doesn't grow overnight. And it's a very common argument. In fact, one of my employees, Harvey, sat over there now, that is exactly how he came to find out who we were, because his mum went through that exact thing 2 years after the insurance company dried the property. The floor fell through because of mould issues. It is utterly terrible. And I'll tell you now, it never used to always be. These are changes in the industry from what I call so-called specialists saying, oh, you don't need to dry a house. You can leave it to dry naturally and you can do this. Honestly, it's just insane. But at the same time, we've got the government telling people to put insulation in the walls and, and things like that. And it's just insane. What should happen if a property is flooded is you should be, in my view, you should be taking off the low-level plaster, allowing the water to come down, allowing the walls to dry out, taking out the insulation, drying the timbers, and if the timbers need to be replaced. It's not always they need to be replaced. You get to them fast.
Exactly. And quickly.
Honestly, I remember 2007, I think it was 2007, it might have even been 2012, but I remember a flood when I was dealing with when I was working for a high net worth insurer on the other side, for a loss adjusting firm. And, they gave us reasonable delegated authority limits. It was the good old days, to put it in a simple term. And they allowed us to go out there and do what needs to be done. And I had a street of various different properties, and following me, I had a drying and restoration contractor who stood with me in the meetings, and I had a contractor. And at the end of every property, we agreed what was going to be stripped, what was going to be left, what was going to be put in the drying program, and what was going to be removed in the contents. And I can assure you that all of my properties were dried within 6 to 8 weeks. And, and we was able to start the reinstatement works. We were starting reinstatement works before some of the people even getting drying equipment in. And, I was very lucky because I worked for a good loss adjusting practice who worked for high net worth insurers. Wasn't, there's the few and far between now, but that's another story. But, that's how it should be done.
Yeah.
And these people were back in the home. And I was really hopeful, and it's only new, but I was really hopeful that the Consumer Duty Act is going to start changing this, because it can't just be about cost. It can't be that we're going to spend $8,000 trying someone's house, or we can just leave it for 8 months, and the 8 months, it just can't be that. That person needs to be back at home. Do you know how many people I see get ill from being away from the home? It's utterly heartbreaking. And it's all down to delays, because insurance company are trying to control too much of the process. If you've got a specialist drying company, and I feel for these drying companies, I do. I genuinely feel for them, because they've got specialists. They know more than I do. I'm just a loss adjuster. They know more than the claims handler does, because he just sits at a desk and looks at claims.
Yep.
They know more than all of us when it comes to doing a drying. We should go back to the times of saying to them, what do you recommend?
Yeah.
Stop interfering. Stop saying we're going to pay you £400 a room no matter how wet it is.
Yeah.
Stop saying to them, you can save plasterboard. Let them make the decision, and let them take the liabilities that come with it, the way it should be. So if a drying company goes in, do you know how many reports we see that have edited? It's unbelievable. They send the report into the insurance company and say, well, we're going to strip the plaster. And they go, no, we're not doing that. And you can't get your hands on the report because you're not the consumer. So you have to do a GDPR request, so you have to take them to the FOS, and you get the FOS to get the report. So the FOS will get the report. Mm-hmm. But it's terrible. And that's what needs to happen. The insurance company just needs to stop trying to control or micro-control every single process, and understand when it comes to drying and restoration, there's people out there that know better than they do. That's it.
100%.
So if any, but what I would honestly suggest that people do, so, this isn't an advertising campaign, but we work with one particular company who will come out and do you a report, okay? Unfortunately, yes, it's going to cost you between £100 and £180, depends on your location, depends what you need. but it will be the best £180 you spend. If you're so adamant that you're correct, spend the money, get the report that is produced by a company that often work with insurance companies, so they really find it hard to dispute. The people have to have the relevant qualifications, and that will be your best. But that's what we do. We just go and get other people in to say, don't always agree with us. I might go in as a loss just to go, I don't agree. And then they come back and agree with the insurance company. That's fine. Okay, we've wasted £150, but we know. And it's just not worth fighting. So just search. There are people out there that can help you. And obviously, there's a link to our company. We always pass on details. And we have our supplier network as well, which again passes on details of companies that will work with you and help you.
Yeah. And I guess from so I've actually appointed a surveyor, but I had to go through the financial ombudsman and put in a complaint for the ombudsman to say, you can use your surveyor. However, the insurance company also have used their surveyor. I've had to pay for my surveyor, and now they're doing like a comparison over the report. So, and that's going through at the moment, and there have been lots and lots of discrepancies that have been discussed now because I've got a professional dealing with it on my behalf. But to get to that point, it took a complaint from January this year to July for the ombudsman to actually make a decision after the insurance company appealed the decision, and then it had to go back into the to the ombudsman again. In that time, I had no financial support, so I was paying for my mortgage on my house, rental in the alternative accommodation that the insurance company withdrew, and 2 lots of council tax. What do you think the FOSS should be doing to support people better whilst they're doing their investigations?
That's a difficult one. I'll tell you why it's difficult, because I got some sympathy with the financial ombudsman at the moment. Okay, the levels of complaints that are going in, I understand, are very, very high.
Yeah,
my criticism of the financial ombudsman would be that they don't invite people like me in to talk to them. They will invite an insurance company to give them training, okay? And it's not training, okay? It's indoctrination, is my personal opinion. And sometimes I get quotes back. I prefer the financial ombudsman to be someone from the supermarket, okay, who has no real understanding of insurance. If they're going to have an understanding of insurance, and have my understanding and their understanding and decide which one you think is correct, okay? Don't just take the training from the insurance company. And if they were just normal Joe public, I think we would have a better outcomes. That's my only criticism. When they start to get technical, you've either got to get very technical or don't bother trying to get technical. So you have the investigation stage and then you have the financial ombudsman stage. And I'll be honest with you, if we say we lost 6 in 10 claims at investigation stage, and I've only lost 2 claims in 4 years at ombudsman stage, it shows what I'm saying. Unfortunately, there is a bit of a disconnect there, and I don't know how that's come about. Your policy was special. There's not many like it. Okay, so your problems are individual. You would have won the ombudsman. The ombudsman would have had to have agreed with you on the fees if you had had a policy, for example, with Lloyd's Bank, to name many, because that is written that they would indemnify your fees in the correct way and member ABI and so forth. That is probably the bulk of your problem, but the bulk of your customers are going through the same thing. I just think at the moment the people have got to just say to the ombudsman, it is my right under indemnity to have my own surveyor. Okay, now whilst the policy doesn't necessarily say that for Trinity, I think it's worth them all appealing the same grounds, because eventually the ombudsman is going to realise that we need to help them a little bit. This isn't fair. This is not normal. You're not seeing these complaints from anybody else. We've almost got to help you, financial ombudsman, as well. What I do find when I come in and I help people who've maybe lost at the financial ombudsman stage, I've got one at the moment, their complaint wasn't structured correctly. Okay, so they're restricting what the financial ombudsman can do. And I remember you were talking at that stage when I was helping you out with your complaint, and there was some structure issues in your complaint which we corrected, but you've got to give them information. You've got to say to them, this is, and if you've missed something, the problem is I don't want to go back and that you add things in after. Okay,
So-
and people have to realise that if you can get your final response letter from the insurance company, I don't know, on the 1st of September, the insurance company, the FOS are only going to deal with things in that complaint letter.
Yeah.
So you have to, or sometimes, as annoying as it is, you have to start a second complaint for the issues that are going on subsequent to that.
Yeah. I've had 3.
Yeah, exactly. And that's annoying, but it's actually beneficial because remember the other day in your group, I actually commented and someone put something about the Ombudsman will only look at these issues up to this date.
Yeah.
And I said to you, I said, well, actually, that's a benefit and it can be seen as a benefit. So I've answered that question correctly, what I meant in that group chat. So I had an Ombudsman decision that went and it was 3 arguments, 1, 2, 3 different things. Okay. 2 of the things were very much about my consumer. Okay. So they were about her winning and I really wanted her to win. She would. The third one was more about fees that we'd expended on our surveyor. Similar arguments, what you're having. We won argument 1 and 2. We lost argument 3.
Yeah.
That really annoyed me because I knew I could win argument 3. I knew it was winnable if I went to the financial ombudsman proper.
Yeah.
It was the investigation stage. But I had to accept point 1 and I had to just take the bullet and to take because my consumer, she'd been waiting too long. That's not fair. So I had to accept. So I had to accept all 3. You don't get to accept 2 and 1. You accept or you decline. So we accepted the decision and we took the hit on the fees, which I don't think was fair. So now what do? I structure my complaints correctly. If I've got 3 items, there's 3 complaints.
Yeah.
So you've got to use the things that you're seeing as negatives as positives.
Yeah, definitely.
And you've got to bear in mind, the insurance company, if they can't resolve a complaint and it goes to the ombudsman, there is a fine, £750. So, it's trouble your premium or whatever it is. So, the insurance companies, there's enough. Unfortunately, the ombudsman are going to get busier if everyone starts listening to what we're saying.
Yeah.
That's the reality. And then the ombudsman will have to go and get more staff. But if they're getting paid to do it through fines, then that's what happened. But the only way we're going to correct the industry is if the ombudsman has seen the same complaints over and over and over again, because that's what this is all about. It's all about the consumer. And at the end of the day, if the consumer doesn't understand it, something's gone wrong. It's like if a kid doesn't learn well in class, you can say the teacher's not a good teacher. And that's the same as insurance. There can't be 1 million people out there who don't understand building sum insured or how to evaluate their building sum insured. And if there are 1 million people who don't understand it, then the financial ombudsman should be saying to the insurance company, you're not doing enough to explain this to people.
Yeah. And I guess, so most people as well will use comparison websites. And the information that is provided through the comparison websites is limited as well. So how can consumers make informed decisions if the information isn't there for them at the time?
Do you know what? Just got to go back to using professionals. I'm sorry, but this is. I was fortunate enough to grow up before the internet took over the world, and there are brokers out there. Most of the problems we see are from people who purchase their own insurance. Because, okay, put it this way: if you're going to go and buy your own insurance, at least read the policy.
Yeah.
Right. At least understand. And I will be doing several clips on things on how I can teach you how to understand very basic things about the policy. But most people say, I didn't want to read my policy. And you're like, but this is everything. This is your life. You lose your house, you didn't read the policy, you're going for so let someone else do it and understand you've got to pay a little bit more. Clean your own car or go down the street and pay someone £10 to clean your car. What choice are you going to make? You're going to pay someone £10 to clean your car. Buy your own policy or pay a broker to help you buy a policy and make sure it's correct. That's my honest, or go to a good insurance company. That's my honest appraisal on that situation. We've lost our way and we've got people buying legal contracts without the guidance. You can't even take out a bank loan, which is a similar legal contract, without being given videos and chats and, do you know what I mean? So, but you can buy insurance.
Average Joe, normal consumer, you need to have home insurance. The TV is littered with advertisements for Compare the Market, different comparison websites, all glossy, all wonderful. You think you're doing the right thing. You go and you answer all the questions on the comparison website, and you get thrown out a number of options for a policy. In my experience, when I did that, I answered all the questions honestly, and it came and bit me on the bum much further down the line when I was accused of misrepresentation and I hadn't answered the questions honestly, and the insurance company policy expert voided my policy, which then led to a complaint. How can consumers know that they are answering these questions correctly, especially when it seems that the answers are accepted really quickly, but then if you ever make a claim, they get dragged up and pulled apart? So, what can consumers do to protect themselves from that pitfall?
Well, I think one of the things that we talk about there is the statement of fact that you completed for the comparison website versus the statement of fact that's been completed by the insurance company. So what will actually happen when you click yes, accept, you then get transferred over to the insurance company, and then there is a second statement of fact, and a lot of the questions and answers are presumed and partially filled for you based on the main one that you asked. I find this tricky because I've had insurance companies rely on the one that was on the comparison website. So, for example, if you put X amount of bedrooms, then there's an issue with that later, but that wasn't the question on theirs. They will always go back to the one that you completed and was sent to them. But then if it suits the narrative, they use the one that they've got. Exactly. I think that pretty much sums up what happened to you, doesn't it? And that's something I think the Ombudsman need to address. They need to look at this and say, well, which statement of fact is actually correct? Yeah. Which is the one that's more reliable? The one that's been partially filled in by the computer, the one that's been filled in by you. I think it's very important as a consumer, if you have that issue, make sure you get both. Okay, you need to understand where the issue is and where those mistakes occurred. So pull the one off the comparison website and pull your one as well. Okay, so you will have two documents. You won't get the one from the comparison website automatically, but you have to go back and get it. They're all different, but you can get them. Or you can ask the insurance company for what they received as well. That's another way of getting it. But the word bedroom. Right. Okay. So when you look at your policy, every word which has importance will be in bold. Okay. So if you see a word in bold, that means forget what you think it means. Now it has a new definition. So the word bedroom. What does the word bedroom actually mean? Different policies say different things. Some policies will say any room that can be slept in, whether it's been slept in or not. Mm-hmm. Some will say any room that's been slept in. And there's so many definitions. So you could honestly say you've got a 5-bedroom house. In your reckoning, you've got 5 bedrooms and 1 office. And I'm talking about a particular customer here. Whereas in fact, according to the insurance policy, you've actually got 5 bedrooms and 6 bedrooms, sorry. And now they don't write policies for 6 bedrooms. That's what you find is most insurance companies only write policies for 5-bedroom houses. And that's how they kind of decide when you are too high of a risk. That often is the cutoff point. So if you're a 6-bedroom insurer and you've got 6 bedrooms and they're an insurer that cuts off at 6, then they can say it's a misrepresentation and they would never have accepted your policy had they known the truth and void your policy. So the best way to avoid it is back to what we were saying before. It's unfortunately to understand that the one that's with the insurance company statement of fact, I would double check the questions on there. Don't rely on the ones on the comparison website. Always double check the definitions on the policy that you're about to take out, because understand that if there's 3 or 4 listed that you're considering, all of them will have different definitions for things like bedrooms, for things like property. Some will say, what's your buildings? What's your buildings? Some insured. Some will say your home, the curtilage, the land, and everything that's within it. So your garages and your outbuildings. Some will say just your home excluding your garage. And that is fundamentally unfair, I think.
Really confusing.
Utterly confusing. And that's why a broker, unfortunately, we come back to that question about the loss of professionals in the industry. A broker would know because they'd know your property and they'd know whether, you can have a policy that separates the garage. Yeah. We have a claim in Scotland now where the lady, trying to say the garage is an outbuilding and apply outbuilding limits. We wouldn't as a financial ombudsman, but it's just like this.
Yeah. I mean, I got caught out with home versus property versus house. So they were used interchangeably on the comparison website. And then when it went through to policy expert, they defined it as property instead of home, which is what I was asked on the comparison website. and that caused me real problems as well.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I'm glad you've just that. That's and I hadn't guessed that's what your problem was, but it's funny that I just spoke about it because it is a very, very, very common problem. Definitions, they change too much, and again, I'm not here to tell the Ombudsman what to do. I'm not here to tell the FCA what to do, but they should force definitions down the route. We should have solid definitions like we do for certain things in insurance. There are certain definitions that are not changeable. For example, accidental damage, there is a definition for that, which is sudden seen. So if the insurance policy haven't defined it otherwise, we always fall back and rely upon that. Buildings can be so many things. And I do understand some of the problems the insurance company's got sometimes, because sometimes someone literally might have 8 outbuildings worth more than the actual building itself that they're about to insure. But again, why should that fall on the policyholder? At the end of the day, they have the option. They've got Google Earth. They can check it in 10 seconds. What really frustrates me is an insurance company waits till claim stage to start checking.
They don't do their due diligence.
No. They've, you live near a river. That river hasn't moved in the last 6 months, or certain things, and anything, it's just like, these people have suffered a loss.
I know.
They've suffered a loss. And what difference would it have made? Often we're finding now that they're going, we would never have insured it if we knew that. One of the biggest things I'd say to people, if you ever get to that situation, is quickly run another quote.
Yeah.
Before you have a chance, just run another quote in your husband's name. Exactly the same, and see if they offer you cover.
Yeah.
Answer the question way round and see if they offer you cover. I do that often. If they offer cover, then they're not telling the truth.
Yeah. And in terms of, so say alternative accommodation is always an issue with consumers. So, and I've seen it quite a lot. So if you're at a stage where you're then now concluding your claim and you get offered a cash settlement, and you take that cash settlement, but there's still that time that work needs to be carried out on your home, will the insurance companies still pay for alternative accommodation?
It should be. So, the word cash is so dangerous.
I know.
It's so, if I need to do a whole hour on the word cash, the insurance company, again, I'd love them to define the word cash. To them, it means reduced. Mm-hmm. To them, it means we're going to knock off our HPs, we're going to knock off this, we're going to knock off that, and literally they will wipe out 40%. In my opinion, they're encouraging fraud, okay? Because they're encouraging you to go and use a black market contractor who's not going to pay his VAT because they're not paying the VAT. Yeah. You tell me let's imagine it's a carpet and a cash or something which is a cooker. You tell me anywhere in the UK you can buy a cooker without paying the VAT. You can't. It's impossible. So why are they, the only people who get VAT back are the people who are VAT registered? So why are they penalising people who are not VAT registered by removing VAT? It's utterly clumsy. I get it on labour, okay? On contracting labour, I get it. So they do all these things. Never tell your insurance company you want cash. Go through the route. Yeah. Let them get their contractors in. Ask them to confirm how much it's going to be, and bring your own contractor and get them to do an actual quote. The word cash doesn't mean what you think it means. If you want to bring your contractor in, that's not cash. That's managing your own repairs. That's indemnity. That is what an insurance policy was invented to do before they started to go and get their own suppliers and all the rest of it. Never ever mention the word cash. Yeah. And I've just got off the question. It's such a bugbear of mine.
Well, they're kind of interlinked.
So they're interlinked. So, but ultimately, let's say the insurance company have got liability and they've done a schedule and they know that the work's going to take 4 weeks. If they use their contractor and their contractor's got a 2-week lead time, you should be asking for 6 weeks AA.
Yeah. Up front. Because that's part of the problem for us as consumers is we've run out of money.
You can ask them to arrange it. Okay, so look, again, we come back to insurance and what is insurance? Insurance is indemnity. Indemnity is financial loss. A lot of people often get confused because they're asking the insurance company to settle the claim on presumed loss. So we're guessing what the building costs are going to be. We're guessing how much the hotel's going to be. We don't actually know. So an insurance company will say, well, we think we know and we've used our suppliers to understand that. So you can say to them, well, do it then.
Yeah.
And you can say that at any stage. So when it comes to accommodation, I tend to step out and say to them, well, just come to let them do it. Let them find you the accommodation. Why are you doing it yourself? Because if it does take a week, you're the person who's got to chase it. Whereas actually you just can ring their supplier and say, sort it out. If you're asking for a cash settlement based on your presumed liability, that's a different thing. Okay. And, if you suffer the loss, if you physically spend the money, you should be able to claim it back.
Yeah.
Okay, that there should never be a question on it.
There always is.
Yeah, yeah, there is. But if you pulled the policy for what it actually is, which is indemnity, your physical financial loss, and you could physically, as long as you spent the money, you could put them in a courtroom and say, literally a small claims court, and say, I've spent the money, I had an insurance policy for it, they didn't give me any guidance, or they, whatever the reason is that you've actually spent the money, you wouldn't get to court, you'd win it.
Yeah, so people don't know that, you see, and they're actually frightened because they think that, if I raise my head above the parapet and start making claims about court and stuff, that they're going to dig their heels in and make it worse, and it's going to cost me a fortune to take it.
The insurance companies are just people who are administrating something which is regulated elsewhere. They write their policy based on the laws of insurance. Okay, they can't just make up a policy and make up words and just. So just remember, there is always someone else. There is always another opinion. There is always someone else that you can go to appeal it. The financial ombudsman. There is a complaints process, and I know a lot of your experiences is of one particular insurer, and like I say, not all are the same. We know some insurance companies, when we do complain, they get to the complaints process, and they're actually, the insurance company kick in gear, and it's not every case. We have good and bad for everyone, but yeah, I mean, all you've got to remember, back to the question of those people, get it agreed in writing first. So, for example, if you find an Airbnb and you found the link for it, then get it agreed, and until that's agreed, don't agree your cash settlements. That you should combine it all in.
It's tough though to do.
Keep away from that word cash.
Yeah.
It is, but then you can always. But this is the other thing that people fail to understand. Let's say you have a schedule for an insurance company and it's got 20 items on it, and you agree alternative accommodation for 2 weeks based on those 20 items, and then we find additional damage. You can go back.
Yeah.
As long as it's an item that's not in the schedule. People think that's cash settlement means full and final. Often the insurance company write full and final. It's full and final based on the information that's known at the time, that we're all presuming liability based on, presuming an indemnity sum summary based on information that's known. So me as a loss adjuster, I might turn up and say, well, that skirting board there, that's fine to be dried, painted. So I'm going to put drying, I'm going to put painting, and I'm going to put treatment. So, so that's what I'm going to put. When the builder comes to it, he might take it off and actually find it cracks. Removal. That's a variation.
Yeah.
Now he has to replace it and he has to prime it. And so that's a variation. We didn't agree settlement based on that. And similar, it might be that we agreed to take the kitchen out and put the kitchen back in, but the kitchen actually doesn't go back in.
Well, that stuff, and if a consumer's dealing with it themselves, and then they've provided, they've said that they're going to paint the skirting board or whatever, and then it's damaged. Is the insurer really going to be honest and say, actually, it's up to us to now replace that as a variation? They're not going to do that.
No, and again, we come back to this professionals field. I'm going to try my best to educate people as much as I can on how to deal with insurance claims. But, if you run a small business and most people will tell you, go and get an accountant. Go and get an accountant. It's going to cost you £200 a month forever.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the end of the year, you're going to have done your accounts and you're going to save more.
Yeah.
It's no different to us. Yeah. It's no different to going out and getting your own loss assessor. We're independent loss adjusters, but we operate in the loss assessing field, and we'll explain to people separately. But ultimately, go and get someone to do it. They're worth more than the weight in gold, because they would tell you what these definitions are. They would tell you what your entitlements are. Will set your expectations as well.
Yeah. So why do you think that people haven't kind of wised up to this as quickly as in other sectors?
Because we're English and we believe in regulation. We trust in regulation. I think the world's changing. I think it's not just insurance. I think it's pharmaceutical. I think it's everything, banking. People are starting to realise that the regulation means nothing. In America, you do some of the things I see done to British customers, they'll take you for litigation. They will just name their price, right? And that's how you make insurance companies stand up. Here, you take them to the ombudsman and they get fined £300.
Yeah.
And people don't believe me when I say this, but an insurance company know their fines before they can literally admit, they can literally know, oh, well, that claim's going to cost us £1,000 in fines. I literally have an email yesterday, which I shouldn't have had, which was sent to me in error. It's literally talk with the insurance company talking between themselves about the fact that the fine's only going to be £1,000.
Yeah.
Right. And if they do what we ask them to do, it's going to cost them £10,000. It's like, that is, so they're willing to take their chance and allow it go. It's a calculated risk.
Yeah.
Like the gambling industry. It's an absolute calculated risk. And that's the problem. The limits, the fines, they should be limited.
Yeah, I mean, they're not really getting fined, are they? Where's the enforcement action from the FCA? There isn't any that I can see. I think the last one was for a mobile phone insurance company in 2018.
Yeah, there's not much coming out. I mean, and the ammunition's there. I mean, I've done this all my life. So from 16 years old, I worked in insurance, so I've got a different view. And I'm really, really, really hopeful that the Consumer Duty Act is here to. We've been needing something like this that tells the insurance company it's not all about money.
Yeah.
Whether they're going to do anything about it, we need a big fine. A big fine. See, when the GDPR came out, and things like that, we was all expecting, everyone was scared of, no fines happened.
Yeah, no.
And everyone's just relaxed. You're not entitled to that data. It's gone backwards rather than forwards because the regulation. Yeah.
Nothing's happening. There's no tangible outcome from having consumer duty and having all of these wonderful things that are there to protect consumers. But where's the consequences for insurance companies?
I've got an insurance company literally arguing with me on a insurable interest argument, which was ended in 2007 under the Gambling Act. It's like, are you really still? We still having this conversation? It's mind-boggling that we're having. And one of the things I think the industry's really lost is the insurance company have done to loss adjusters what they've done to everyone else. Okay, which is they give them. Let's say they go to a company and say, "Oh, we can give you 100 jobs a month." Let's say, and then all of a sudden they're giving them 1,000 jobs a month. Now that company is employing 1,000 extra people to keep up with that work, and then all of a sudden say, "Well, now we want you to change. Now we want you to start saying that property doesn't need to be joyed following a flood." You can't disagree. If you disagree, you've got to find jobs for 1,000 people. And I've seen this 30, 40, 50 times happen to companies, and they then become a product of the insurance company. Now, when it comes to loss adjusting, I can genuinely say that I was really blessed. I had a long proportion of my life, 11 years, I was working for a company. They're no longer here, so I'll mention they're called Ellis May. And, I have many happy customers because we dealt with good insurance companies. We charged professional fees. We spent the amount of time that was required to deal with the claim. And the insurance company paid the fees, paid the claim. If the claim needed to be investigated, they did the investigation and they came to the conclusion they kept the clients informed. We never had a supply network. We never had our mates or we never had the contractors or people that were overruling us. We was the loss adjusters. We said what we said happened. If a job needed a surveyor, we'd write to the insurance company say a job needs a surveyor. No one would stop us.
Yeah.
That's all gone. But that's what it needs back. Those guys, they're still here. They're still working in the industry. There's some of them are, senior qualified adjusters. And, if you have a real serious claim like a major fire, I can think of one loss adjusting company. If you have a £5,000 claim, oh my God, buckle yourself in, right? If you have £1 million claim, you're going to be fine because the adjuster's going to be old school, fully qualified, knows, been around the block, knows what he's talking about, and he will look after you. And it's really, really, really bad. And then the other problem with the industry is not many people help, not many of our competitors will help people who've only got the £5,000 claim because there's no money in it. There's no money in it for us. But when I started this year, it was an absolute commitment. I was helping everyone or no one, and then so my dream is one day I'll be a millionaire and I can help everyone for free. I don't have to worry about the money. But the reality is that you've got to make money. But, just keep away from the word cash.
Yeah. And I think as well, so just, touching upon the industry and the people that work within it, do you think that compassion has been lost for policyholders going through these traumatic events? I
think, right, so, okay, So my personal story in a very quick nutshell, in a very simplistic way. Started insurance when I was 16 years old. Straight to an insurance company, a major insurance company based in Birmingham. I've never been out of insurance. I dealt with claims by the time I was 19, 20. I was trying to, I was internal loss adjuster, trying to get on the road and become an external loss adjuster. I was dealing with claims, and I was the product of what I was. I was completely indoctrinated. I had zero empathy, zero understanding, zero. I say zero empathy. I don't mean it like that. I mean, I didn't have real empathy. I had empathy. I'm so sorry for your loss. Empathy. I hadn't suffered the loss. 2005, I suffered a loss, a big one. So the consequences for me were massive, in terms of my livelihood, my relationship at the time. Everything went.
Destroys your life.
Everything was gone, literally gone. And I dealt with it. And I can't, the insurance company at the time were decent. The loss adjuster was okay. Contractor was okay. And I did this for a living. Yeah. You'd think I'd be able to cope for it. And I couldn't. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because in 2006, I decided straight away, when I know that I need to go and work for one of these companies like Ellis May that allow you to be a proper loss adjuster. And I got to see straight firsthand, oh my God, these people really do suffer. Yeah. I was going crazy over things like, I'd wake up at 5 a.m. and be like, my sofa's creased. I had no house. What am I bothered about? This cushion on my sofa, and I was angry because it was creased because someone had put a chair on top of it. Yeah. And it's like, get a grip, Mark. Why are you going crazy about that for? And we came home one day, and partner at the time, all of her clothes had just been skipped. Now, the drying company come in and just took them on it. No one had listed what they were. And oh my God, I didn't know what they were. She was a different lifestyle to me, but they'd just thrown £500 boots in the skip and then listening quickly, and that then caused arguments at home. And it's just like it was the worst thing that ever happened to me at the time, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me moving forward. I don't think these people are inherent. I don't think these people are. In answer to your question, I don't think that they are. I just think they haven't experienced it yet. So if you're 17 years old, you haven't even got a house yet. And now most people don't own a house till they're 30, 40 years old. It's only when you own your own house and something happens that you start to realise, just a radiator leak, it cuts off the kitchen or whatever, the dogs are going to be. There's so many little consequential things that you need to experience yourself to make you a more round human. And I think that is a lot to do with it. And usually, back in the day, you can be a lot just to use like quite reasonably of age, so, and you'd experience some life. I wasn't one of the people. I was a loss adjuster before I got to experience real life, but I was a better loss adjuster when I got to experience real life, experience my own losses and get my own family.
But do you not think that there should be training around the impact that it has on policyholders when stuff like this?
Do you know what they need to do? They need to go and join the good old days. They need to get the claims handlers on the street. They need to take them with the loss adjuster. We used to take claims handlers out.
Yeah.
And the best claims handlers, I assure you now, are the ones who went on to be the best. And one in particular insurance company, I'm not going to mention because I'm not here to promote them, but one particular insurance company I worked for when I was at Loss Adjusting Company, we used to take out their staff often, right? And they were some of the most knowledgeable people. They had the skill set. Forget it, I'm going to mention them because they deserve it. There's an insurance company called Hiscox, and they had their internal staff. They had the skill set. They had the knowledge, and they were allowed to go out and see what's going on.
Yeah, that's it.
And meet the people. But we're back to this premium thing. So an expensive insurance company. Don't get me wrong. I can't. So, but that model needs to be replicated. And they understood, and they got to see people. They got to see, and often it softened them behind the edges. When you see someone crying. I've had I don't know how many men cry on my shoulder. You do that and go home and try and be hard.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not possible.
Yeah. But I also have seen patterns in the group where the people that are the worst affected are actually vulnerable customers. So you've got single mums with kids running around on floors that have been taken up. You've got elderly people living in caravans that think they might die in the caravan before their claim's done and gets home. People with serious illnesses. Where's the protection for these customers? Because there's meant to be vulnerable customer guidance that should be adhered to, and I don't see that being followed. Really.
No, you're right. I mean, the FCA have brought in rules.
Yeah.
I've got brought in the guidance. I know this sounds daft, but you have to talk like you talk to a child. So Claire's got to get off now. I think we've only the time's gone really fast.
It has.
Another 50 things she's going to still ask me, so we're going to have to do this again. We'll ask you to put your questions in there. Obviously, Claire and Guardian Group, we're here to try and help you. So
Yeah. Thank you.
ask Claire questions or come to us. We'll put our website in the link, and let's start winning the battle, guys.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thank
problem.
you for allowing me to ask you questions and for offering you support to our.
No worries. And well done to Claire who won her claim, by the way. She did quite well.
Thank you.
Thank you.